Hi, I'm Sam Fecich from the EduMagic podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Bryon Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood, to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at FreshAirAtFive or check out my website, BryonCarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected. Hi there. Welcome to episode 11 of Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. And so this morning, as I'm out here finishing up a Fresh Air at 5 walk, because that's what I do, I want to just say, hey, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining in on episode 11 of this thing that I started on January 5th. It's been such a blessing to me to be able to share my content out there with people in the world beyond my district and space, and have people listen to the thoughts that I've got. A friend of mine challenged me and said, hey, Bryon, what about talking about some personal effects of the learning that you're doing? How does that connect to you, as opposed to just giving us a summary of what you heard? Some days it is just a summary of what I heard, but other days it really tugs at my heart. And as you can see in the past few weeks of episodes, the recent episodes, I've been trying to do that more, about putting in personal connections to the learning that I'm doing. All right. Okay, enough. Without further ado, let's get into episode 11 of Fresh Air at 5. Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, PLN, it's Sunday, March 7th, 2021, and it's in the afternoon, and I'm out walking for Fresh Air at 5, and it's nearly 5 o'clock in the evening right now here where I am, and it's a beautiful afternoon. It was pouring rain earlier, but it's nice now, and I'm glad to be out. All right, this afternoon, as I'm out here on Fresh Air at 5, I listened to Lindsay Titus talk to Megan Anderson on Define University podcast, and I think that's what it's called, Lindsay. I'll get it right in the show notes of episode 11 of Fresh Air at 5, as well as on the Twitter. But yes, so Lindsay and Megan talked about being who you are and bringing who you are to where you are. And if people want you to not be who you are, then maybe that's not the space that you need to be in. That was quite impactful to hear, and we need to bring ourselves. We need to understand who we are so that we can take care of ourselves. And Lindsay, this is like the message you shared at the DL Symposium 2021 Wellness Workshop a couple weeks ago. And it's so important that we understand our identity, understand that we are worthy and important, and our feelings do matter. And as servant leaders, as teachers and educators, we pour ourselves out so that we can serve others, but we need to make sure that we serve ourselves as well. That's what I'm doing out here right now for Fresh Air at 5. I decided to listen to Lindsay's conversation with Megan because I knew that it would lift me up and make me smile, and to know that I am worthy. Thank you, both of you, for sharing your thoughts. And this is something that, as an educator, that I've had to come to terms with, because sometimes I try to do things and people want me to be somebody else, and I can't be somebody else, and then I don't enjoy what that thing is that I took on. But I do it because I said I was going to do it, and it's a choice that I did make. And until I choose to unchoose that, I have to keep doing it. All right. Thank you all. Have a great week, and we'll keep on recording and sharing more podcasts this week. Bye-bye. One more thing for March 7th, 2021, the Define University podcast with Lindsay Titus, episode 60 is what I just listened to. And if you haven't listened to her podcast, I recommend it to you, and you should go click subscribe and add that to your queue because it's positivity and she is making a difference in our spaces. Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, PLN, March 8th, 2021, and it's a beautiful 13 degrees in the sunshine right now as I'm out for fresh air at 5 at 4 in the afternoon, and it's a beautiful day. So this afternoon as I'm walking along here, just before I get on Instagram live with Mr. KV at 4 p.m., I have picked up and listened to My EdTech Life episode 61. So Fonz, well done. And he had his guest on episode 61. And the question was, who is Tisha Poncio? And you know what? If you want to learn who Tisha Poncio is, she's energetic, enthusiastic, and my goodness, wow, what a story she's got about her working with her students at school in high school and getting them to be the tech marketers and taking care of teachers in her school and giving them skills. Empowering. And you know what, Tish? You have no apologies for who you are. And I was listening yesterday to Lindsay Titus on Define University as she talked to Megan Anderson about being exactly who you are. And Fonz, you're getting this too. We got to be who we are because we can't be other people. You know, as much as I want to be like Chris Nesi with podcasting and doing what he does, I can't be Chris Nesi. I got to be me with Fresh Air at 5. You got to be you with my EdTech Life. And Tisha, you can't be Chris. You got to be you and bring you to wherever you are. That's my afternoon thoughts. Beautiful day. And take a listen to My EdTech Life, episode 61, as Fonz talks with Tisha Poncio about creativity and digging in. Creator's gonna create. That's what this guy does. Okay, bye-bye. Hey, PLN, it's Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. I'm out here for Fresh Air at 5 this morning, and it's 3 degrees Celsius, light breeze, and but it's clear, and it's getting to be springtime-ish and not as much precipitation, which I'm super thankful for. So yes, out here walking on the street, getting some fresh air. And last night, I saw on Twitter that an episode of Education Today where Scott Nunes invited myself to be on his show back a bit ago has come out. He was able to, in his busy schedule, able to get that podcast produced and published, and it's out there. And I listened to that this morning because I hadn't heard our conversation other than just recording it, and it was super nifty to hear my own voice and tell my own story and just remember and recall those things that I talked to Scott about. That you forget. You should talk to your story, tell your story to somebody, because your story is important. It makes a difference. If you are not necessarily a guest on a podcast, I would encourage you to think about some questions about where you've been, where you've come from, and sit down with somebody maybe and have them ask you those questions, or by yourself, and record your thoughts, because that reflection is so important for understanding who you are and where you've come from. And it was just, I don't know, it brought joy to my heart to hear Scott and I talk. So, I'm going to say, hey, go listen to Scott's podcast, Education Today. He's got some interviews with a number of people, and he included me in the series that he's got called People I Admire. So thank you, Scott Nunes, for including me in people that you admire. I just feel humbled and honored to be included in this. I'm just a teacher from Canada, but apparently I got something to say. And, like I said at the very end of the podcast, be yourself and, share who you are confidently and with confidence. So that's what I'm doing here. That's why I got Fresh Air at 5 and connecting with all you on Twitter. Appreciate it. Thanks for taking a listen. And listen to Scott's podcast because it's good. Okay, bye. One more thing for March 9th, 2021. As I'm finishing up Fresh Air at 5 this morning, I took in Overthrowing Education, episode 43, as Bathsheba talks with Star Saxteen about asking questions. So what can you learn from this episode of Overthrowing Education? Okay, that's a contextual question. You can go and listen to the podcast and learn the answer to what I just asked. So that's one thing that they were talking about, is how we give students work and ask them contextual questions that they can find the answers to, and then we're surprised that they don't learn how to ask deeper questions because, well, the questions we're asking are, well, they're in the text, and they can find the answers, and it's the answer that we're expecting. So there are some places I think that those kinds of questions are important. Like in math, what is 2 plus 2? That equals 4. Things like that, those skills-based things that we get our students to do, like chemistry. What is the most electronegative element on the periodic table? It's important to know that, because if we're talking about how we do chemistry, you got to know these kinds of bits. But asking the question, why is that so? There's an answer that we can find in a textbook, but there's also deeper thinking that goes along with asking the why. So thanks, Bathsheba, for bringing this to the fore, and Star Saxteen for your conversation with her. And I was just intrigued because, we ask our students to do demonstrations and things like that in class, do presentations. And if we get them to do presentations and things on things that they're wrestling with from a text, as opposed to, well, those are the pat answers, those are the right answers, then, we're going to get much more out of our students. And I think something that I struggle with is getting an answer from a student and not knowing what they're going to say to that. So that freedom and confidence to go, okay, I've worked with my students and I trust them, and they're going to ask good questions that are going to challenge the class. All right, thanks. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Good morning, PLN. It's Wednesday, March 10th, 2021, and I'm out here for Fresh Air at 5 this morning and enjoying my morning walk. It is 1 degree Celsius. The wind isn't blowing, so it's actually quite peaceful here in Abbotsford, where I am. All right, this morning as I'm walking, I listened to the Staff Room Podcast, episode 75, with Shay and Pav, as they talk with teacher librarian Beth Lyons, who's out of Brampton, Ontario. And thank you, Beth, for joining Shay and Pav on their show and the crossover between the two shows. And I haven't listened to your other show on your podcast yet, but I'll try to get that in by the end of the week here. As Shane Pav and Beth talk about storytelling and how story is such an important factor in our culture and in our world, because through stories that we convey values and lessons and learning, and it's so very important. Interesting, Beth, to hear you talk about how you are doing your librarian work virtually and not face-to-face as much in your school right now because of remote learning. And that's a curious thought to me of how we can curate. And there's a teacher librarian in our district here who has a website, and she does a lot of the similar things that you do by putting books and suggestions and curating resources for classrooms and students in their school. So I'm the Library Learning Commons teacher in my school. Far from the library guy, I'm more the Learning Commons side, as I help with technology and creating stories and giving students a space to talk about things that's going on with them. One more thing for March 10th, 2021. We're a year out from almost a complete year from when COVID started. And I'm wondering, have any of you sat down and written down your story for how it's going? What's happened? What are the struggles and challenges, joys, highlights, lowlights, struggles, things like that. Because I think that's important right now as we capture the end of this first year. And capturing that COVID story, you could do something similar to what I'm doing right now by recording an audio of your story. not necessarily for the purpose of publishing it, but that's a great idea. But you could, I don't know, save it so that you have it, and then you can share it in the future when the future generation knows nothing about this plague that we have been under the scourge of, and we can tell our story and share our learning from this experience. All right, that's it for now. Have a great day. Goodbye. One last thing for March 10th, 2021. Listen to the Good News, Brad News show here as I'm rounding up my Fresh Air at 5 walk this morning. And I want to thank you, Brad, for bringing your podcast to light and bringing it here. You're on episode 10. And you know what? I've been encouraged at every episode that I've listened to of your podcast. So people, if you need some encouragement, take a listen to the Good News, Brad News show, because Brad is bringing it. So thank you, Brad. Appreciate you. And it was great to meet you a couple weeks ago. All right, this morning, as Brad talks with Jessica Weiler and as well as Lisa Weiler Haskins, I think I got that correct. We see two EAs, two educational assistants, bring their conversation to us about what they do. And you know what? I want to just give a big shout out to EAs, educational assistants in our education system. Without them, it would be difficult to do our jobs. We have a team in our learning support services at school of educational assistants that just make such a big difference in my school as they are educators with a different take on how we teach and deliver content. I appreciate the work that they do. And over this pandemic, we've seen a shift in our building in how our educational assistants work. They get into Google Meets, they use Jamboard, they use manipulatives, they spend time building relationships with their students to drag them kicking and screaming if necessary through the content that they have to do. But they do it through invitational relationships, and that is such an important thing. I'm going to pass this along to them to encourage them, our learning support services teacher, as well as my principal, because you know what? Educational assistants make such a difference in our lives. My son, graduating from grade 12, wouldn't be where he is today without educational assistants making a difference in his life. So I just want to have a big shout out to educational assistants this morning. Yeah, you guys do great work, and I appreciate what you do. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Jessica and Lisa. Okay, bye-bye. Hey PLN, it's Thursday, March 11th, 2021, and I decided to get out here at 5 this afternoon for a quick walk to close my exercise rings, because that's important to me and it brings me happiness as I go through my day, because it helps me clear my head. As I'm walking today, I intentionally listened to Shooks and Giff, Season 4, Episode 8, as Jen Giffen talked with guest Kim Strobel, who is a happiness coach. And Kim and Jen had this brilliant conversation about our mental health and well-being. And it was fantastic to hear them talk about how struggle is real, and we know that. And we're coming up to the anniversary of March 13th, 2020. That's actually tomorrow for me in my space. It's March 12th, but that's the Friday that it all changed. And as we approach that, it's like kind of this thing that, you know, you're like, whoa, that's a huge thing. It's an anniversary. And so I have spent time with my students this past week in asking them, what's one thing you wish you knew before COVID hit, so that they can think about that and start thinking about what life was like before COVID, because it's so easy to forget and be negative. And I encourage them as they head into spring break to take time to relax and enjoy some time with their friends and family if they are able to do so, and find something that they like to do and to be creative. So Jen and Kim have dropped a bunch of extensions and apps that you can take a look at. They're in the show notes here for Shooks and Gift Season 4, Episode 8, and I'm going to be definitely taking a look at those things. Some of my self-care practice for myself is to get up in the morning and go for a walk, or in the afternoon like I'm doing right now. Super important to move for 30 minutes. My one word for 2021 is appreciate, and that pushes me into that gratitude space of appreciating. I don't have a gratitude journal, but I like that idea of writing 3 things down for 21 days and seeing how it changes my life. Thanks so much. That's about all. One more thing for March 11th, 2021. I encourage you to go take a listen to Shooks and Give, Season 4, Episode 8, and take a listen because it's good for you. It'll be good for you. You'll be glad you did. And Kim and Jen share some fantastic tips and tools that can help you as we step into this second year of COVID. All right, Carpenter out. Have a great day. Talk to you. Bye-bye. Hey, PLN, it's Friday, March 12th, 2021. First off, it's Friday. You made it. Congratulations, you made it. Second off, where I am, it's the Friday before the spring break, a 2-week break, and I made it. And wow, it's coming up. This is the day a year ago, the day, not the date, but the day a year ago that the world changed. It was March 13th, 2020, that COVID really slammed the continent of North America with restrictions and affecting people's health and travel restrictions and social interactions and things like that. And so today for me, this is a big day. I'm walking into the day feeling really, really good today, and not, being over positive that something might happen, but I'm not also super negative at all. I'm just being realistic that this is just another day, and but as we head into spring break, it's important that we acknowledge that this spring break is different than the last one. The last one had so many unknowns. We have so many knowns this year. We know we can't do things. We know we need to wear masks. We know that we are going to be doing things different than we really like to do, like going to Mexico and going on vacation. So those things we already have an understanding about that compared to last year, which is where we were walking into trauma and we didn't even know it. So I just want to say that at the outset of today's little segment here. I listened to Leader of Learning episode 106 as Dr. Dan Kreiness interviewed and talked with school principal from Waterloo, Brad Hughes. And thank you, gentlemen, for your conversation about leadership. It was fantastic to hear you guys share your thoughts about service leadership and transformational leadership and the difference that you're making in your spaces. And Brad, thanks for sharing and being vulnerable, getting your content out there with the Good News Brad News show. You are that's one of my regular listens in my pod queue, so that's fantastic. Dan, thanks for the work that you're doing and making an impact in our educational community, having great guests on. I'm going to keep on listening. Have a great day. Happy Friday. Bye-bye. One more thing for March 12th, 2021. As I'm wrapping up FreshAirAtFive this morning, I am recording the final segment for the episode 11 of FreshAirAtFive that's going to come out on March 19th. That's next week. So that'll be episode 11, March 19th. Theme I'm thinking about that I've dug into this week is dealing with how I'm feeling as we are approaching the 1-year anniversary of the COVID shutdowns. And so that's been a theme throughout this past week of listening that I've done and the topics and learning that I've done about being positive and being, taking care of yourself and self-care. And it's so very important that we do that. So that's a theme that's running through the week, and the title will probably reflect something like that to get your attention in Apple Podcasts and other places like that. Okay, so as I'm finishing up, I listened to episode 107 with Dan Kreiness as he, on the Leader of Learning podcast, interviewed Jessica Williams. And Jessica, thank you for coming on and talking with Dan about your journey and your work that you do as a director of curriculum and technology in your space, and how you are working as an advocate for taking and making AP and upper level courses accessible for all. It's a great opportunity for those that don't have the opportunity to be in a space where they are believed in and given opportunities. I came from a middle class background and not all the opportunities in the world, from where I grew up, and I had to do a lot of pushing myself to get to where I am today. And I'm thankful for the struggle that I had to go through, but I wish also that I had people that were in my corner, more than just the one-off teachers cheering for me, but that the system would have been cheering for me to be learn and be better than I was. So carry on that work. Thanks so much for talking about it. Have a fantastic day, and happy Friday, y'all. Bye-bye. As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.